Okay, so this is the second video of my monthly dividend updates. I was planning on doing this weekly, but so far I've been doing it monthly. So I put one video out for the month of August, and this one will cover the month of September. So this is an update on income from my covered call funds, my BDCs, my CEFs, closed-end funds, my dividend ETFs, my REITs, real estate funds, preferred stock and income funds, and whatever else category might fall into one of these or might not. So anyhow, let's keep moving here. If you like this type of thing, I appreciate it if you would subscribe, like the video, and turn on notifications. And also, I see a lot of YouTubers getting their channels shut down because apparently maybe it's fallen under giving financial advice. I never want to be one who gives financial advice and it goes bad and people lose money or things don't turn out the way they want it to. I'm just sharing what I'm doing, and I like being a little bit more risky than other people. And for full disclaimer, you can read this here. So I do this mostly for people to be entertained. If you learn something along the way, that's fine, but that's not my main goal. I just like to share what I'm doing and entertain the masses. So there you go. So anyhow, I like to jump into Blossom. I've had an account for a while, but I just start checking it daily, perhaps maybe a month or so ago. Next week, I'll be going to Chicago to an event they're having. I'm looking forward to that and see what that's all about. I live in Northern Illinois, about 100 miles from Chicago. So if anybody's going to that, it'd be nice to meet people. This is more of a percent of what I got. About half of our portfolio, this is combined, my wife and I, is in growth. And what I mean by growth, by QQQ, SPMO, and also VTI and QQQM. So the QQQ, is people ask, why do you have SPY and QQQ, not, let's say, VOO or another S&P 500 index fund that mimics the S&P 500, or a different QQQ type fund that mimics the NASDAQ 100? And the reason is because I write covered calls on the SPY and QQQ. And if you do any option types of things, you would know that writing covered calls on SPY and QQQ has more options, has daily options and some different things. But as long as I'm writing covered calls, I'll keep these two here. But now let's see what percent I have in a little bit of everything. SPY, 22%. I have about 50% total growth. So SPY 22, then you have about 16% here. So we're like about 39% or so. And then SPMO is a growth fund, not an income fund. So about 10% there. Down here, I got VTI, 4.1%, and QQM, 1.6%. So probably about 55% in growth. The first covered call or income fund is QQQI. That is my favorite covered call for income fund. And in second place, we have QDTE. I did have quite a bit of QDTE. I still got quite a bit, but I did want to thin that down a little bit. I'm trying to keep my covered call funds no more than 5%. My total retirement fund, I'm trying to keep the maximum at 5% for any of the income-oriented funds, not counting SPY, QQQ, or SPMO. I do have 6% QQQI, but I make an exception for that one because that's my favorite. So we have QDTE, 5%, and then SPYI, another one of my favorites, 3.4. GPIQ is a favorite. MAGY is a favorite. 3.2% is relatively new, so it might not be a favorite going down the road someday. So FEPI is one of my favorites, but it didn't recover as good from the April downturn as I had hoped. So I'm hanging on to what I got, but it's no longer one of my favorites, but it's doing what it's supposed to do. XPay, I bought that when it was first released. I like the way it is treated for tax reasons. So I have that in my brokerage account, after tax account, not an IRA. So it uses return of capital. So those distributions, I can kick the tax bill down the road for a couple of years, hopefully. We have some AIPI, about 2%. Then I said QQQM, so that's a growth fund. IYRI is a NEOS fund, which uses cover calls on REITs. It's relatively new, but I think if it mimics the performance of SPYI QQQI, I'll be happy with it. So it looks like it's paying about 11 or 12% distribution per year. So GIAX, I got GPIQ, GPIX, one of my favorites, JEPI, which was one of my favorites, but there's so many others that are considered just as safe as JEPI that have a better distribution, and two of them are right here, GPIX and GPIQ. So then we have some other alternative type things, some BDCs and closed-end funds here. We have a cover call fund, QDEVO, which is one of my favorites. We have another alternative fund, another cover call. QQQT pays 20% yield, and it has dipped down a little bit since April. So the overall return, I keep an eye on that. So if the stock went just sideways, I'd get a 20% return per year. But it has dipped down in April, and the recovery isn't back to where it was. So the overall return is probably about 13% for 1 year and not 20%. So I need this one and the one underneath of it. I just need these to go sideways, the NAV. Now, a couple that you'll see jump next month is TSPY and TDAC. These are Tap Alpha. I have added to both of these. I've been watching TSPY and have held that for quite a while. TDAC is new, but if TDAC performs somewhat equivalent to TSPY, I'll be pretty happy. So TSPY does about 12 to 14% yield, and TDAC is expected to do 14 to 16%. WPAY is the new one that everybody's all excited about. I did buy some shares of that and going to watch that. I think the yield this week is going to be like 80%, which is crazy. I'm sure they can't keep that up forever, but if it does, it will become really popular really fast. We have Omaha, or a Berkshire Hathaway type cover call fund, Palantir cover call from UMax. We have blocks. That will jump up a little bit too. I think I bought some extra shares of that here in the past month. Another closed-end fund. And then we have a bunch of curve funds. I have some shares of each of those. I just like what curve is doing. And I also bought some of the gold and silver curve funds. But this is not updated. I just bought those today. So this isn't updated as of the transactions that I made today. So there is your percentages of what I'm holding. Let's look at some dividends now. Okay, so let's go back to the 1st of September and see what we're doing with dividends for the month. Over here we have the symbol, the description, and the amount we got for distributions. Some of these are weekly payers. For example, Blocks is a weekly, QDTE is weekly, GOF is a monthly distribution. So if you see repeats, it's not a mistake. It's because it pays weekly. Right off the bat, we got $27 from Blocks, got QDTE, and then we have MAGY. We got 57 here. And I have some of those also in different accounts. So you might see two distributions like the same day. So you got MAGY here, MAGY here. It's because they're in different accounts and they do pay weekly. I'm trying to clean that up a little bit. It's hard because I have different buckets for money. I have actually shifted some more money from income funds into growth funds because when we get to the bottom here, you'll see how much I have for dividends or monthly distributions. I don't need the amount of monthly distributions that I'm getting at this point. So typically, a growth fund will outdo the income fund. So QQQI is a cover call fund, and QQQ is the underlying fund. So QQQ will probably outperform QQQI. The growth fund will outdo the income fund. So since I don't need all the income, I've shifted some more money back over into some of the growth funds, if that makes sense. So I was about 50-50. Right now I'm at like 55% growth and probably 45% income. And I still might shift some more into growth. So let's look at some of the popular ones I got. So a few of these I've sold out of. The Robinhood cover call from Round Hill, I did sell out of that one because WPAY is a fund of funds, and this one is covered under WPAY. So I've sold out of the NVDW, the PLTW, the HOOW, those are all Round Hill, and I put that money into WPAY. And I was hoping they'd come out with a fund of funds, and they did. So I don't have these ones anymore. We have TSPY, which I mentioned earlier, that is becoming one of my favorites. We've got QQQT, which pays a 20% distribution per year. This is a monthly payment. And then we have SPYI right below that. So these are like sister funds, both paying 20% annually. And then we have some other funds here. I have thinned out a few of them. The Rex shares, I heard they might be coming out with a fund of funds. And when I was shifting some money back into growth, these are some of the funds that I took money from to put back into growth. If they come out with a fund of funds, I might put money back into those that cover all those. So it's not that I was unhappy with these. It's just I wanted to thin things out a little bit and eliminate a few of the funds. I was getting close to 70 different funds throughout all my accounts. And I think I'm down to about 60. Probably 10 of those are some funds that I own, like maybe 10 or 20 shares that I'm watching different reasons for either writing cash secured puts on or perhaps something I might want to invest more into at a later date. So I do have a few funds that I own, just keep an eye on. We have YMAX, which has been around for a while, one that people have either loved or hate. I have just a few shares of that just to keep an eye on it and see what everybody's either complaining about or bragging about, depending on what side you're on. You see the QDTE, the RDTE here. I have a few shares of Alti that I've had. I've sold some of those. That was one of the funds I sold to put money back into growth. Then we have iSpy, IQQQ. And here's blocks again, because it's a weekly payer. We see some of the weekly players again. And earlier, I said GPIX and GPIQ are some of my favorites. Here's GPIQ. There's 3 different distributions because I have that in 3 different accounts. So I think I did the net down, so it will only show up in maybe 2 accounts now. I didn't really thin out any shares. In fact, I might have added a few. I shifted money from one account to the other. We have IRAs, Roth IRAs, and then we have brokerage accounts after tax. And then we have a Robinhood account that's after tax that I use margin on. We have 5 or 6 accounts, and they're for different purposes. So that's why I have some money in some different accounts. The Roth account, I'm putting mostly into growth because that account will probably be the last one I touch. And so I just want that to grow. My brokerage account, we have distributions coming out that are tax efficient, mostly return of capital. And then my IRA, my traditional IRA, where I'll have to pay tax on those distributions when I start taking those out. That one there, I'm shifting most of the income funds in. So that is the money that I will start taking out at some point to supplement my retirement, whenever that day comes. I retired back in April, and so far we haven't had to touch any of our retirement accounts. We saved a lot of money ahead of time, and so far we haven't needed to spend any of this retirement money. But starting at the beginning of next year, we'll probably start taking out a fixed amount each month. The income was growing at such a level that I probably don't need that much each month. So I shifted some of that back into growth. So keep moving here. We'll just jump to some of the bigger ones. So here's XPay, about $600 a month. So that's in my brokerage account. That will be money that I will be taking some of to pay our monthly bills, whatever those might end up being. The Palantir is in my IRA, and some of these MAGY are in the IRA. Most of the income funds are in an IRA that plan on withdrawing money from starting next year. There's 20 here, like 100 here, 50 here, 40 here. We have some shares in 2 different accounts. At the end of the month is when a lot of the monthly payers jump in. So QQQI is a monthly payer, and I got a couple different accounts. So here's another QQQI of 480. And then we have the SPYI, almost 400, and another QQQI of 320, several different accounts. Most of these monthly payers at the end of the month, if I would add up that last column, these are most of them. So like $2,500 just in the last week or last few days of the month. For the month of September, we ended up right about $9,000. This is from our Fidelity account. So this isn't including Robinhood. In the Robinhood account, we have probably another 4,000. And if you watch the High Income ETFs versus Rental House series of videos, you'll see that in those videos, I show what we're getting for distributions from Robinhood in that account. So this is just our Fidelity and mostly our IRA that we'll start drawing on at some point next year, perhaps. And like I said, even then, I'm not sure how much this will actually pull out and actually need. It just depends. And we'll keep adjusting the amounts probably forever, depending on how things work out. Okay, that wraps it up. Like I said, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications. And final reminder, this is not advice. In fact, it might be bad advice. So we'll see you next time.